I guess I'll forget who's all about. My blood's too thick for South Wales. I've never been properly able to explain myself in this climate. Hi kids. Welcome to Terry on Tuesday. Bit of a different one this week, as you can probably tell. God's mercy on you swine. Anyway, this is my heatwave outfit, by the way. It's also another Johnny Depp outfit. I never realised that until now. We can't stop here. This is interview country. Oh well. So, my special guest is coming up. And here he is. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. As you'll see, I've got a special guest here, the one and only Richard Dursley. Hello, Richard.
Hello, how are you?
I'm losing my mind, as you can tell by the outfit, in this temperature.
It is. So I guess full clarification, we're recording on Sunday.
Yeah.
And it's about 32 degrees up here right now. So my brain is barely functioning. How are you doing?
No, I'm not doing too bad. I live in a big old house, and I found that if I close all the windows and stuff, it stays cool here. You know, and your brain, the logic bit goes, no, open the windows, get some air in. And you do that, and just hot air rushes in. It's like medieval aircon kind of thing.
Yeah.
It stays cold if you keep everything closed.
As you know, we're top floor converted flat, so it is warm.
Wow. Goodness me. Yeah. No, it's ridiculous. I've never liked the heat ever. People will say, oh, when we Brits moan about it's too hot or it's too cold or it's too wet. I never moan if it's too cold. You can warm up if it's too cold.
I completely agree.
You can't get away from the heat.
I don't mind the heat. I deal with cold temperatures extremely well.
Yeah.
Hot, not so much. Like you said, you can always just put on a hoodie or something if it's cold, you know.
Yeah, you can get away from the heat anyway. So let's lose the yellow perils. Anyway, so
strong look.
Do you know what? This is the cosplay Hunter S. Thompson shirt.
It's cool.
And I wore it under a suit jacket to go clubbing the other night. And
I saw
awesome.
that post on Instagram.
I was like, check it out. There's all these random strangers going, oh, it's a sharp shirt, mate. I'm like, it's my Hunter S. Thompson shirt. Anyway, yeah. So aside from the ridiculous heat and stuff, I should really tell the 4 viewers that tune into my channel on a regular basis, who's Richard Dursley? Who are you, and where are you?
I am in Bristol, and filmmaker, podcaster. About a decade in radio, then moved over to podcasting.
Wow.
And my real passion is filmmaking, and I rather enjoy making zero budget movies, which is I think filmmaking is something we both share a passion for.
Yeah, quite a lot actually. I mean, I have made a zero budget. I made 2 zero budget films, and when I say zero budget, it's one of them with undefinable things. What defines zero?
It's never
budget?
zero.
No, it's never a zero. I once got into an argument with a Welsh filmmaker, this woman who was touting her film all over the place, going, I made my film for £7, you know, like the price of sandwiches or something. I was like, who bought your camcorder? You know, how much petrol do you spend driving around?
I mean, time costs, right?
Exactly. So it's just a gimmick, and she didn't like being called out on it. But no, I mean, the weird thing I found out in the last couple of years is that when you say low budget, it means 2 different things.
Yeah.
Like obviously the film I'm working on now, Bloody Students, is I'm hoping to raise like 75 grand, which to the man on the street is quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
But to the film industry, they laugh at you. I literally had a woman saying, so how much do you plan to make this film for? And I said, I can make it for 75 grand. And she went, oh, well, we don't deal with tiny, mega, minuscule budgets. I'm like, but the guy on the street, you said, you want 75 grand? He wouldn't go, nah, pocket change, that is. He'd be like, yeah, absolutely. So I said to her, right, well, what do you deal with? And she said, well, from £1 million and up. I said, well, can I apply for £1 million? No, you can't. I was like, okay, thanks for the help.
Wow. Thanks. Yeah. Cheers.
Great. So you can't prove to them that you can do something on the cheap and still turn out a decent enough looking film, but on the other hand, they won't help you anyway.
Yeah,
great. So this is why we make low budget films. And why do we do it? Because we basically love movies, I guess, and want to tell stories and stuff. Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think you've got to love the process, because there's no profit guaranteed, is there? So it's just mostly the fun of making a film and getting your friends involved, etc., etc., isn't it?
Well, I mean, so far every film we put out has been put out for free as well. We've just put it on YouTube or put it on Vimeo for free. We've not charged ever. This time around, I am tempted, purely because I thought it might be a nice idea just to split whatever we make amongst the cast at the end. So, you know, we're not going to make much, but it's something. But yeah, generally I've never charged. It's just purely for the love of filmmaking. And you know, even when you've made, I mean, I often, you know, I find even when you've made a film that you're like, you know, the end product was so, but the journey and the process of filming with people.
Where were you 5 years ago, mate? Because you know, I as I've said many times, the Off-World thing was the film where everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And I was there hanging on going, but when we have a film finished, it'll be great. And it's the opposite. It is the opposite. You need to enjoy the process, like you said, and don't worry about because the end product is like, I recently watched the Ron Howard masterclass on directing, and he said, every film you make is just going to find a way to break your heart. And he's right, because it's never exactly what was in your head at the time. Right?
Only ever, I literally, if I watch any film that I've made, and I mean, I watched them when we premiered them, and I haven't watched them since. I did watch Annette again. But all I see is problems. It's all I see is issues everywhere in every scene. You know,
and I mean, we've had, obviously because of lockdowns and all sorts of things, running out of money and stuff. We've still done about 5 years of post-production on Off-World, and people are expecting, 5 years you're going to fix everything. It's going to be like Star Wars. No, it ain't. And for the things that you do spot, there's a million things you didn't spot that we fixed. So
yes.
Well, I mean,
I think we discussed this on my podcast when you were on. The things that take the most amount of time with the VFX is stuff that people will never notice if you've done it right. So they'll never know that there were people there in that shot. They will never know that there was a bag in frame. They'll never know, you know, all of those things removed. Bags,
bicycles, wind turbines. People, there was a guy standing in the background with the dog going, I'm not moving, it's public place, I'll stay here. And I was like, fine, we'll just paint you out. But you know, it's more hassle just to get rid of some guy who's being a dick.
I find people are just attracted to cameras. It's weird. People, you know, it's strange how often people complain about surveillance and being on camera and you know, my personal space, my you know, my security. But whenever I'm filming a scene, people will just find their way into the background. They will find a way
outside somewhere, and there's all pedestrians and stuff. Someone will be like, ooh.
And they can see you. They know you're doing it, and still they will find a way.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
I mean, I'm sure you get some people who are like, oh, excuse me, sorry, you know, don't want to. But there are quite a lot of people who are surprisingly, I'll get on screen. They don't know when they'll ever see themselves on this film or whatever. And
you raise a good point, because I'm looking in the camera lens. I'm not seeing the people that are nice and stay out of the way, to be fair. There may be more of those than I'm thinking, to be fair. But yes, there's always those one. It's always one, at least one.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Annette.
Yes.
Now, let's talk a little bit about that, because how long ago did you make Annette?
Well, it came out 2019? 18. Sorry. 18, I think it released in 2018. Okay. Yeah, Annette was 2018, but I wrote it 2012.
Wow.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And just, like first project, it just took forever to actually get to the point where we decided to start filming. I was quite fortunate in a way, because like the script, for example, had things in it like there were jokes about the game Skyrim.
Yeah.
Elder Scrolls Skyrim. Now, luckily, they remastered it, so it was still relevant by the time the film came back around. It was relevant because they decided to remaster the game. So that was kind of lucky. But yeah, it just I guess that first project, it always takes forever just to get from script to film. Whereas the follow-up, we had all the equipment and it was pretty much the same cast, so it was very straightforward to just continue straight on.
Yeah, and you know what, I quite like those anachronistic things, even if it did date your film. You know, when we were doing Off-World, someone said, "Oh, can we have somebody walking around in the background catching Pokemons using Pokemon Go?" And I'm like, you know, Pokemon Go lasted about a year, didn't it? And everyone was like, went mental about it, and it disappeared. And I was like, well, that would only be in like the bloopers anyway. But it's like, it does put a nice little timestamp on certain things, you know.
Well, and you look back on those movies now, from especially films from the period where you grew up, and it's just great to see those things, you know. Like
really old-fashioned mobile phones. I've got a friend who's he's making stuff for my film, like horror masks. His market is people who love the Scream movies, and the mobile phone that Billy Loomis uses when he gets killed is like out completely. Apparently, there's like 3 left in the world because they all got recalled or something. But he's got one, and it cost him stupid amounts of money, like more than a car. And he's actually done resin casts of them, and he sells them all over the world to people who want this very same Motorola or.
People love a good film prop.
Yeah, and
because there's the Matrix flip phones as well.
Exactly, the ones that went huge. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, it again, the time travels so quickly that these things do go out of date quickly. And you know, phones were getting smaller all the time, weren't they? There was like these little Sony Ericssons that were like, you know, Milky Ways, and now they're getting bigger. You know, that's quite a small phone really, but they're just turning into big black mirrors, to quote a phrase.
Yeah, I've got a small phone by today's standards, but it's still huge. I was the person who was happiest when phones were getting smaller.
Me too.
Like I'm like a front pocket person, right? So I hate that I can't sit down with a phone in my pocket. I have to take the phone out. I'm all for smaller phones.
Yeah. So going back to Annette for a minute, that's it's around that time I heard about you because it was probably through our mutual friend Richard Thompson.
Yes, who was he was one of the stars of Annette.
And obviously I knew Richard from meeting him at certain conventions and stuff, and the one thing we do have in common is we both do Jack Sparrow. And then I don't know how or when, but obviously he must have said to me, "Oh, my friend Richard, I've done this film Annette, and my friend Richard, he's casting, and he's doing a sequel to Annette called Cold Shot."
Yes.
Now, I'm a bit of a not knowledgeable about Dungeons and Dragons, which is weird given the role I played. But
you did it well though.
No, actually, I played a guy who didn't know much about Dungeons and Dragons, didn't he? He was
but very much looked like he should.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But Cold Shot, is that a term from Dungeons and Dragons?
Yes. Well, it's from D&D anyway.
Yeah. So what is a cold shot?
So, like for example, if you were playing BattleTech, giant mech battle, you would, a cold shot would be, I am going to attack the left arm or something of the mech. That would be a cold shot. So it's like I'm calling, I guess like in pool or something. You're like, this ball, that pocket.
Yeah. So it's basically announcing your intention to do something. Yeah. Okay. All right. And the interesting thing about Annette is, I think Annette is, you might be be able to correct me if I'm wrong here, because like I think Annette is more comedic than Cold Shot. Cold Shot is kind of, although it's a sequel, it's interesting how films kind of morph into something else. So the 12th Day, I'm assuming, we'll get onto that in a minute, but I'm assuming that your next film, The 12th Day, is not going to be connected in any way to Cold Shot and Annette. No, it's a whole new thing. Yeah.
It's a whole new thing. I think in hindsight, like a sequel to Annette was probably a mistake, although I do like Cold Shot. I enjoy it. I think
I watched it recently, and it still stands up really nicely.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, totally.
I had a lot of fun. Again, so much fun making that movie. And it was so much fun. I fondly remember the book bookshop day that we had
Yes,
with you.
that was another boiling hot day, wasn't it? It was
That was
baking.
another boiling hot day, yes, down at my friend Sean's house, who kindly gave us his living room to turn into a bookshop, which I think
because he had the bar and he had all these bookshelves behind him. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was really good. But yeah, it was more serious. I think as a writer, or certainly, I guess as a filmmaker, and being zero budget, I always think like zero budget and that kind of janky look you get with zero budget, or at least I get when I try and make zero budget.
No, I mean, I think everyone does, but
I think it lends itself to comedy very nicely.
You're absolutely right, because I'm the other way round. I tried to do a serious sci-fi movie with my first one, and because it's low budget, zero budget, whatever you want to call it, there is a slight cringe factor. I mean, there may be people like you say who watch you don't spot the flaws or the fluffed lines or whatever and go, there's nothing wrong with that. But I get the cringe factor because it's played so deadpan serious that you're going, oh, it's low budget, but they're trying to be so serious. It's almost like hammy. I don't know. It's just weird. But now whereas you're moving into a more serious film with 12th Day.
Yeah.
I'm moving into comedy, not because I'm expecting my film to be janky. It's just I want to do something different, you know.
A
different feel. So what made you want to sort of throw the comedy out and go, right, let's do a serious horror film now?
Excuse me. Well, I think an element of it for me is I'm as a writer, I write. I find writing comedy quite easy. And also because I'm not the most confident director, I kind of hide. I feel like I've hidden behind comedy. That's kind of the way I've seen it. Like Annette was always going to be a comedy, and fine. Cold Shot, I think, you know, obviously being a sequel to Annette, it was going to be a comedy anyway. But I think there is an element of like, oh, people are laughing at the film, and that's good because it's a comedy. So they're supposed to laugh at it.
Yeah.
You know? So I think two comedies, you know, and the progress, I think, from Annette to Cold Shot is quite clear. I think, like with Annette, we barely knew how the camera worked. I mean, I think we got that camera about 2 weeks before we started filming, and just figured it out as we went. Cold Shot, you know, we kind of knew a lot more. And then I got to the end of Cold Shot and I thought, you know what, I really want to just, let's see with zero budget if we can actually make a serious horror movie, you know, not a comedy. There's obviously levity in it. There is some sort of comedic.
I don't think. I mean, I learned if you make a film that's so po-faced that you're scared to relax for a second and have any little bit of tiny humor, no matter how small, it'll be boring for the audience, I think, because in any person's working day there's going to be moments of happiness, sadness, and whatever, and you know, even hilarity. So you've got to sort of reflect the whole spectrum of emotions, I think. But and also I think that's the way it should work. Much like looking at older photos of yourself, you should always look back at photos from the past and go, ugh, you know, like, and your film should, your current film should be like, oh, this is 10 times better than the last one.
Yeah.
Because if it was the other way around, as I've always said, if everything went perfect with Offworld and then all the problems that normally happen on a film set happened with bloody students, I'm like, it's all going wrong. What am I doing? You know, but that's the way it should happen, I think. And
I agree.
I think you'll look back, you know, having made 2 films before, you look back at even the process, not even the finished product, but the process of doing 12th Day. You'll go, oh, well, this is far more together than the last one, and 10 times more together than the one before that. So
because you learn, right? I mean,
you should do, and
you can watch all the YouTube videos you want, you know, and of course you could go to film school, which I guess some sensible people do. I didn't, but you know, there's so much, it's a world of difference between seeing a video of how to do something and actually doing it. And those problems you just get on set, even in the most controlled environment. Things you never consider or never think about. No, you know, equipment's the worst. Always equipment, because I'm so focused on like actors' lines, framing of actors, and then you just don't see, oh, you know, there's a bag in the background. There's
Yeah.
there's a boom mic over there, just propped up against the wall.
Yeah, and
I was looking at everything else,
you do, because you get laser focused on what you
Yeah.
should be doing, which admittedly is the director's job anyway.
It is.
So you can be forgiven for not spotting the bag in the background, really, because I guess DPs and other people should be kind of looking out for that stuff as well. But yeah, I mean, so let's go into 12th Day. Can you give us a kind of brief outline of the story, as it were?
Sure. Yeah. So 12th Day is it's a slasher movie set at Christmas. And it follows Jen and her best friend Kate. And Jen has recently started dating a guy who was a real piece of work back in their school days.
Okay.
And Jen is very concerned about her friend Kate, and she's like, I'm not sure, because I always remember this guy being a real piece of work. But Kate is convinced that he's changed as a person. So they're reintroduced, or Jen, I guess, is reintroduced to his friends group, which also were not particularly nice back in the day. Yeah. But they all share this moment in the past, not Kate and Jen, but Jacob and his friends. They all have a very dark moment in their history that they're trying desperately to forget.
Yeah.
And in and amongst all of this, there is a murderer going around killing people. So it's kind of a mystery as to who's doing it and what's going on. But that's about as much as I can really say about it. Really.
That's okay.
Yeah, so it's 12 days. So it takes. I don't know why I do this every time. I don't know why I do it. Every time
spread out over 12 days, kind of.
Every time I'm not going to do it, because with Annette, I was like, this all happens on the same day, and you got to think about people's hair. You got to, because they're volunteers, so then people get their hair cut. Like, hey, I'm going to dye my hair blue. You're like, could you not? Yeah. Could you wait a few more days? And I always do it. And again, here it's 12 days, so it's basically the 12 days of Christmas. So it's happening over that period.
I mean, we did Offworld over the space of a week, and we shot it as much as possible in chronological order, because everyone is supposed to be stranded on this planet and growing beards and getting more,
of course,
disheveled as you go along. But I think there are some scenes where I've got, it's like I must have found a way to shave on this empty planet somewhere. Because things got a bit shorter. Pain in the bum. But I
remember. We called shot. I remember Alex was in the Navy at the time, so he was like, his hair was. We should have done the filming when his hair was short, but we didn't. Yeah. We started when it was longer, and then he went off to the Navy. And it was like, right, we had it timed to the perfect week. We were like, right, so this many weeks once you're back is when it will be that length again, and we can film for however long. It was absolute nightmare. But
that's the one thing that drives me nuts, and I've only done it the once at the moment. It's just trying to get all the people together, get to agree on a date and a time kind of thing,
especially when it's spread throughout the months or the year. That's really tough, because trying to get that many people together, and that was something I've tried this time around. I have a lot less scenes where there's everybody, because that's the big problem, when it's like, hey, all of you who are kindly giving your time, can you all show up on this day for a day? So I've tried to kind of keep it down to, hey, there's like 2 or 3 people together, not 10 people the entire film.
I know, it's mental.
Yeah, it's tough.
So look, now this is a good time for me to mention to the viewers and to yourself that obviously you offered me a chance to audition for a part in the film.
Indeed.
And yes, I was very keen for it. It's because I love doing my little bit part in called Shot. But now we're kind of faced camera to camera, as it were. I'd like to apologize for having said to you that I can't do it.
You know full well I 100% understand with the the amount of work that goes into filmmaking.
And I've got a weird it's a weird time, especially August at the moment. Things are really like being thrown at me left, right, and center. The main thing is I've got to finish off the editing for the documentary of Offworld, the making of. So I've got 50 chapters there, and I've got 4 left to do.
Are you doing a physical release as well as a digital?
Now this is the thing. Somebody asked me the other day, when can I see it? And literally, I've just finished editing a chapter, which is sort of a summary of the entire filmmaking process. And I actually say on camera, people always ask me, when can I see it? You know, and you'll get it as well. You must have got this with you.
I try not to ask you.
So when can I see it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I said on the video is that it's a hard question to answer, not because I don't want to, I don't think it's going to come out, but in the past I've said, oh, it'll be like in 3 months' time, and it never happens. Yeah. But mainly it's to do with our distributor, because we've got this American distributor interested, and that's why I've got to finish this this documentary in the next 2 days, and then we've got to get everything exported onto a hard drive and mail it to the States. Along with a 7-page documents worth of supporting stuff like stills and subtitles and any contracts to prove that we own the performances and the music and all this kind of supporting material. And then they will sort of they call it onboarding, and they basically set the whole project up as, right, this is going to be our new film that's coming out, along with about 7 or 8 other films that they're working on from wherever. Yeah. And they decide, right, we'll take it to Cannes, we'll try to sell it here, we'll show it to streaming people that we know, we'll show to direct to DVD people. So but I am confident there will be a physical release of it, because if you go to Asda or Tesco and you go down to the DVD section, look at the bottom, and you'll find all these, not Sharknadoes, but similar type of films, because the distributor around, they've got these mid to low budget, and I say low budget, we're still talking about $5 million.
Yeah. Low budget is,
you know. And I'm like, I said to the American guys, I said, you know, our film is like 10 grand, right?
Yeah.
And they're like super in. Hey, no, you should be really proud of what you've done. I'm like, yeah, I'll be proud when it finally comes out, but not just yet. He's like, you don't seem too enthused about your own movie. I'm like, I'm British, mate. This is what we are.
This is exactly
permanently
what we are.
Disappointed.
It's permanent stress and
I said it, until there's a reason to celebrate, you know. But I have seen their films in Tesco and stuff, and they're like £5 a piece. And look, like you, we were just going to chuck it on Vimeo or YouTube and see what happens. But just as we were about to do that, the trailer that we put on YouTube got spotted by this distributor, and it changed the game, because we had to say to the Kickstarter backers, now, sorry, we can't give you DVDs of the film. Yeah, because something even better has happened that we didn't even dream of happening. So, yeah, you know, we got to take advantage of that. Would you rather us not? You know, so.
Well, you'd be crazy not to if the offer comes.
Give it a try. Give it a try. Yeah. And none of us is expecting money coming back, profit, whatever, because the money they've earmarked to spend as their sort of sales and marketing budget is something like $15,000 or something. We've got to earn. It's like a record deal. You have to earn that much back to pay them off before you make any money yourself. So none of us are going into this thinking we're going to get rich or paid or anything. No. But it's a start. It's like, you know, first film, like your first film is basically proof of concept that you can do it, learning curve and all that malarkey. So, but what I have said to people, I see Zoom doing this thing saying we'll end in 10 minutes, but I'll keep yapping whether it's recording it or not.
We'll soon find out.
And we'll restart the call if that's
okay. Yep.
I'm just going to close that window if that works. All right. Okay. So what we've decided is, although we're not allowed to stick it online because that completely kills the exclusivity of it for the distributor, because they can't sell it then because everyone's seen it, we're still going to try and do some sort of smaller screenings for people who like the Kickstarter backers and friends and family, that kind of malarkey. So anybody who is you know, kind of closely involved, or you know, friends of friends type things, will get to see it eventually. So yeah, as me and you are in the indie filmmaking gang, a nod's as good as a wink, as they say. So before we get back onto your stuff, I'm going to try restarting this call.
Okay.
And we're back, hopefully, he says. First time I've ever done this, so it'll be an audio file. If
it may be audio,
if it doesn't work, it'll just all be audio with a little graphic equalizer thing doing that. I don't even know how to do that with my editing software, you know, like podcasting when they get the little waveform thing.
I think you can do it in After Effects. I usually fake it.
I'm going to fake it.
I just get a WAV, just a waveform from
that's
like
constantly
the internet,
doing that,
and then just chuck it in. Yeah,
because no one's going to slap you for. I think you find that waveform doesn't match with the volume level. I was like, oh, really?
I know
Get a life. So obviously we touched on this earlier, but what is your favorite part of the filmmaking process? Because you've got the idea, which is the fun bit, coming up with the idea, and then you've got writing, then you've got sort of casting and the technical side of it, editing and finishing it all off. What's your favorite sort of part that you think, oh, I'm really looking forward to this section?
Honestly, there's elements of all of it that I like.
Okay. Yeah, me too.
I love I feel like I'm probably strongest as a writer. So the writing and editing. So I love the writing process is very fun for me. I like just, getting completely absorbed in what I'm doing. There's a certain
writing process appeal with like writing anything. You've got these people living in your mind, and you're putting them through stuff and working out what they'd say. It is my co-writer on Off-Field, Chris Lynch. He's a novelist. He's written so much more stuff, and he just calls actors meat puppets. He's like, my meat puppets, and it's kind of what it is. It's like you bring these characters to life out of your imagination. Yeah, and then you think, oh, what can I make them say? What can I make them do? So yeah, there's definitely a lot of that. Do you find the writing a slog at all? Because you obviously you have an idea for a story, then you've got to go through all the dialogue and stuff. Do you find that a pain at all? Because I sometimes get slowed down with that. I love writing dialogue, but I just find it, I've got to do a good few hours on the computer today.
I do. I find I just need it works. Sometimes I just need to walk away. And I think the key thing is I personally cannot just push through, because I know people always say, oh, just get your first draft done, get it done, and then go back and fix it. I can't do that. Yes. I will go back over my first chapter, like the first couple of scenes, like first act, right?
I'm glad it's not just
over and over until it's perfect. And
I know.
I'm like,
exactly. Not just me. I'm glad it's not just me, because
I need to know that it's good, right? So because otherwise I feel like I'm writing crap. So if the first act is solid, and then I move on to the next act until that's solid, and then I move on to the final act until that's solid.
Each thing you've written gives you the confidence to do the next one. Yes. I used to have a piece of paper stuck to the top of my monitor, which was a quote from I think it's a quote from George Lucas, of all people, but he was quoting Francis Ford Coppola, who said to him, because he was his film school teacher, wasn't he? And he said, he said, look, go from start to finish of your first draft as fast as you can. Don't even stop. Just keep writing. Go back and fix it later. And it's easier said than done. You're right, because you don't want to write crap. You think, oh, I just spent a week.
It might work for some people, I guess. It's not for me. I need confidence in what I'm writing. So for me, going back over those, I mean, obviously I have the outline in my head. It's not like I'm winging it. I know where I'm going. But in terms of the dialogue, in terms of the just the flow of the scenes and what's going on in the scenes, I need to get each act right before I move on to the next.
Because it's a little reward, isn't it? It's a little buzz of going, hey, I quite like this. I quite like that. That's good. I'll do the next one,
Yeah, and you kind of end with a first draft that you could probably film with, and then you go back and you just
improve it and go, well,
you just tweak at that point.
Yeah, and you know what, I was the same with Bloody Students. I'm writing this completely on my own, so instead of me bouncing it off to another writer and they come back with their tweaks or whatever, it's a case of like, right, do the first draft. And I thought, that ain't bad, and I added a few bits and added a few more bits, and I thought at some point I better start calling it draft 2, draft 3, whatever. And I got to draft 4 thinking I'm done, and I printed it out, and I put little bits of paper on it, and I bound it, and I'm like, look at that.
Nice.
I found it. I've given it to a couple of people to read, and then they pick out the stuff that you don't kind of see and go, oh,
yes,
yeah,
it's so useful to send your script to people. As long as it's friends you trust to tell you if something's bad, not people that are just going to blow smoke up your ass.
Exactly.
That will actually come back to you and say, hey, actually, I think you need something here or something there.
Yeah.
Because you're right, you're never going to see it in the same way that when you're filming that scene, you don't see the boom mic stand, over there in the background because you're completely focused on what you're doing. It's the same with the script. You get too focused on things and you don't necessarily see the bigger problems, the underlying issues. So it's definitely helpful having someone.
Now, I've got a pacing issue with draft 4. It reads like I sent the script to a complete stranger, but he's a British TV actor, comedian, who read it and said, "Ooh, I like it. It really fizzes along. I'm calling me potentially interested." I'm like, "Oh, awesome." But then someone else saw it and said, "Well, I'm not being funny, but the good bit, because obviously the pitch for Bloody Students is students fighting mummies,
I love it.
In a museum. But that fight doesn't start till 65 pages in, and when you've got a 90-page,
that's like
script,
final act, right?
Yeah, that's 65. That's like there. So all this is like half an inch of it's funny banter and stuff, but it's not the film people wanted to see. So draft 5 is like, how can I shorten that first bit, get the action going sooner? So I started watching, I went to consult the Holy Oracle, which was the Cornetto Trilogy, and I'm like, right, when did we first see a zombie in Shaun of the Dead? I think it's 12 minutes in. I think it's 12 minutes, and it's the one who's standing as they come out the pub, and he's like rang dang diggity dang dang, all that. And then I watched Attack the Block, John Boyega and Jodie Whittaker, Joe Cornish film.
Yeah,
and an alien falls out the sky and lands on a car just as they're about to mug Jodie Whittaker, and I think that's 4.5 minutes in. So I'm like, I've got to kick this off a bit quicker.
It could be later than that, I guess. But I don't think the monster turns up in Annette for about 20 minutes. But
but 20 minutes is still good, But do you know what? I did watch then The World's End.
The World's End is
do you know what? It's my favorite film now. It used to be my least favorite.
It still is my least favorite, but it's my least favorite in a trilogy of almost perfection. So
I bet your favorite is
still fantastic.
Hot Fuzz or Sean?
I personally think that Hot Fuzz is one of the greatest. I think is one of the tightest scripts ever written.
It is.
It's unbelievable. Fantastic. There's not a wasted line of dialogue in that.
Again, it's hard to say, oh, that's my favorite. That's not my favorite, because, like you said, they are almost perfect movies. They're flawless, pretty much. Anything Edgar Wright does, except for Scott Pilgrim.
Do you know? I rewatched Scott Pilgrim a couple of months ago. It has not aged well either. I mean, it's. No, I'm not. No, I remember liking it when I saw it in the cinema, but I wasn't such a fan this time around, I must admit.
Right. No, so in The World's End, which is my favorite, the obviously, because you've got, is it 5 or 6 of the guys, they all got to meet together, and there's all this setup and stuff, and they don't discover Smashy Eggman until like 40 minutes. So it doesn't really, the whole
but there are hints the whole way along.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah. So what I've started doing on draft 5 is moving some of the exposition and stuff,
into the adventure
and into the actual adventure itself, and thrown in a couple of little hints as to the spookiness and stuff going on before. And so I'm hoping now 40 minutes should be okay for me, if I can. And also because I've lost 20 minutes now, I can put that 20 minutes at the end and put more set pieces in and more gags.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's my plan.
It's funny that you went to the Cornetto Trilogy, because that's where I often go for that as well. There's a couple of films that you kind of, I guess, depending on the genre you're going for, I kind of absorb myself. Frequently asked questions about time travel was another one when I was filming Cold Shot and Annette. That was another one that was like, that pub-based humor. It was like exactly what I needed for those films.
You know what? FAQ about time travel wasn't received too well, and I was skeptical. Everyone was like, "Oh, it's Shaun of the Dead meets Doctor Who," and again, I think that tagline didn't do any justice.
No, it's its own thing.
It's its own thing, and it's a lot better than people give it credit for, I think.
I think so. I really enjoy that film. I think it's really tight as well, because time travel is tricky.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I think
You've
they
got
do
to
a very
establish
good
your rules and then stick to them. Same with vampires and stuff. You've got to establish what your vampires do or
yeah,
what your creatures
absolutely.
do and blah blah blah. So
But so
let's
script writing's fun.
Yeah. But your most fun part?
So, well, there's two. So really, in an ideal world, my most fun part would be the filming bit, because I'm with a great group of guys, girls. We're filming. It's really good fun, but it's often very stressful.
Yeah.
The most fun part for me, honestly, is the editing, but mainly because at that point, the stress of getting people together to film is done. It's all done and it's just fun. And then any problems I find in post editing, I always think to myself, but this is a wonderful problem to have a film filmed.
Yeah, absolutely.
These problems. What a wonderful position to be in.
Oh, it's to be done, at that moment,
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
so
again,
ideally, on the best day, it would be filming. When filming's going right, it's great fun. But yeah, realistically, writing or editing, because once you got it there, you're like, okay, now I've just got to edit it.
I like the idea of editing, but I think I would rather sit in with an editor and throw in my 5 pence worth every now and again if I think something's not the way I want it.
Yeah, sure.
But having done all the other stuff, the writing and the shooting and the directing, I think at that point I'm like all burnt out, and I'm like, just editor, make it work. Just take it and make it work.
Fix things.
Well, let's flip that on its head now. What are your like? Have you got a pet hate or an aspect of it that you think, oh, this is a necessary evil, but I hate it. I hate it when this happens. And like you said, it's probably equipment.
I think yeah, probably. Equipment. It's all arranging to get everyone together is the biggest one, and the stress of like, I think it's the stress of like I've only got these people for like 4 hours, which sounds like an eternity, but it's really not.
No, it flies by, doesn't it?
Just trying to get everything done, especially if you're outdoors relying on natural light. That's that's a pet peeve. The sun going down too early.
and things
can the earth orbiting the sun be a pet peeve? I don't know.
You spend 4 hours setting everything up and everything's deathly quiet and fine, but as soon as you create action, there's a car honking in the background or a bird or a seagull or something, and you're like,
oh, background noise in editing is an absolute pet peeve.
Well, we were shooting outdoors, literally like 5 minutes up the road from me in this big park, and there's supposed to be another planet, so we've had to carefully try and cut out any chirping birds. And there's one bit, it's like because it's in a kind of a valley almost. There's a road like 2 miles away from it, but you can hear this when the traffic gets a bit too loud. You're like, oh my goodness. I don't even think of that because we didn't do any ADR or anything like that. We didn't have the facility.
Sound would definitely be a pet peeve. Actually, sound is, and I think sound more than anything nowadays, especially,
it's getting very crucial, isn't it? Because
the thing is, cameras, like even like phone cameras now, look amazing.
So good,
right?
Yeah.
The thing that separates low budget from higher budget nowadays, I think, is sound. That's the real one where you can tell straight away. I said on one of our podcasts the other day, actually, I was like, I think I'm still really amazed by drone shots. Like I see drone shots, I'm like, oh my god, that's so good. And I forget, like, they're so easy to do now. Like every indie movie has a drone shot now, and it looks fantastic. That's just where we are with technology. But sound is always the one, and that would be my biggest pet peeve, would be sound, actually, now that you've said it. We've
had over 2 years of trying to fiddle with sound, sound mixing, even to this very week. 2 days before we're supposed to be sending everything to the States, there are still little bits missing in the sound mix that we didn't notice till later on, and some lines are quieter than others, and it's like,
well, and how do you listen to the movie?
Exactly,
because I'll edit a movie with headphones on, and it sounds great in the headphones, and then I'll listen to it through certain speakers, or listen to it on the for a TV, and I'm like, oh no, now it sounds different, and I'm not sure like which experience am I going for. Same with picture, color grading and contrast. what sort of TV are we showing on? Because that, like, I could go to different TVs in my house from, you know, I'll edit it on the PC. It looks perfect. And I'll take it upstairs to my housemate's TV, put it on there. And I'm like, it's too dark. But it's not too dark down here. And then, you know, I'm assuming my monitor's right, but then other TVs, it'd be too bright. And I'm like,
do you know what?
It's the kind of thing that will drive you insane if you think too much about it.
I know. I used to do this with music. You know, you'd come home. This is back in the days of cassettes. We'd come out of the studio, me and my mate, with our demo on a cassette. And like maybe even before we do the vocals, we're like, right, let's listen to some rap tune. We'd be in his car on the way home, a little Ford Fiesta with a sound on full. It's like, this sounds banging. And you get home and you play it on your stereo and you go, that's not very good. It's not very good. So what is the standard? You know, that's really annoying. The one thing that annoyed the crap out of me when filming Offworld was actors. Now, not in general, but it's a certain it's a certain moment. It's the moment when someone fluffs and, you know, wrong lines and people forgetting their lines and there's a bit of a giggle. That's fine. But the thing that bugs me is the comedy train, the comedy conga. So somebody says something funny and everyone laughs.
And you've got this to look forward to, but especially when you're doing a comedy film, especially because then it becomes you. I think I guess actors as well just fall in with the tone of what they're doing. So if it's comedic, it all becomes a joke. And then you feel like you're being the asshole when you're like, hey, can we just get this shot, please? Like,
can we be serious? And like, but
then I feel like I'm being an asshole, but it's like,
I wanted to have like a fun set. So I didn't want to sort of shout anyone down. I did
of course
one or two people down and I felt really bad about it afterwards. But it's the thing when, I mean, you might not get it on a, you know, 2 or 3 people in a scene, but if you've got, we had like 10 people. And you had like people behind the camera and stuff. So somebody says something funny, everyone laughs. And then someone else will go, and what about this? And they'll laugh as well. And then it becomes a competition of, let's say something funny. And you hear me going, I just saw a clip of myself going, holding the script, going, shaking I can hear people giggling. And I'm like, come on, guys, come on.
Yeah.
Thief of time.
We've got an hour left.
Time.
Come on.
And
sun's going down.
You don't, you're right. You don't want to be the asshole.
No.
You want to be, you know, and I want to keep saying to even, you know, I'm thinking about the situation now, and I'm a new film, and I have all these people and people I trust and people I've cast and people I really like. And at some point, I'm going to be saying, guys, I know this is comedy like, but can we just get going? You know, can we just keep? They were like, Mr. Grumpy's off. You know, I don't want to be Mr. Grumpy at all.
No, and it's a fine Scott.
Yeah, but you hear about directors being absolute, you know, hard taskmasters like Kubrick and Ridley Scott and
I mean, it's a different footing when you're paying people a lot of money and they're professionals. You know, when I'm for example doing a 0 budget movie with a group of people that are kindly volunteering their time. It's not really my place.
That's the situation I was in. So you can't tell them, "Boy, be more professional." They're like, "Pay me, and I'll be more professional."
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a valid argument, really.
Well, I'm hoping to pay my actors this time so that I can at least have that hanging over them.
I'm hoping, like I said, to put the film up at a cost and then split that cost amongst the cast. That's my hope.
Yeah, and I think it I mean, it's not a mercenary thing, but I think obviously in an ideal world, we'd all like to pay our actors for doing
100% of it.
And again, it does motivate people to go, oh, let's get serious about this. You know, let's just not, you know, treat it like a fanning around of an afternoon. You know, so hey, look, what stage are you at with 12th Day now? Because I noticed you just put a logo up, new logo.
Yeah,
and where are you at with it?
Well, I mean, as these things are, script was written. Some wardrobe was even sorted pre-pandemic. We were pretty much like, we were thinking like in the next few months we would go for it.
Okay.
Then the pandemic happened. So we had a full cast, did nothing for 2 years. And obviously some of those cast members can now not make it.
Yeah.
So we're currently recasting. So that where we are at the moment is filling those remaining casting roles. And then we're pretty much ready to go. You know, we're still technically in pre-production, but the reality is most of it was done before the pandemic. The pandemic also gave me that nice opportunity I'd left it so long, I'd forgotten a lot of what was in the script, which I thought was a really great position to be in, because I could read the script like fresh,
yeah,
and that really helped to just, you know, clear some things up and see problems that you don't, like you said, you pass it to a friend to read and whatnot. It was almost like that, where I could look at it a bit more
sort of
clinically,
and just familiar with it, and then just kind of go, right. And I think I'm doing the same thing, because I've started the 5th draft on mine, and I haven't been able to get back to it because I've got all this work and Offworld and all this other stuff going on, and I'm juggling all this kind of stuff. And it's like, when I get back to it, I think I'll be it might help, you know. So
it helped me, to be honest. It did help having that distance and time. I think it'll be a better film for it. But yeah, so at the moment, just filling those casting roles, and obviously, being a winter Christmas movie, there are outdoor scenes we obviously can't film right now. We need to wait for the leaves to fall and all of that. So our ideal plan is to start filming in the fall.
Okay, so
fall, and then that gives us all through the winter into January, February, I guess. Maybe early.
Have you got any scenes with like snow, or are you going to have to try?
No. I mean, if snow happens, then maybe we'll try and get it in there. But no, it's just the fact that we are filming. There are shots in woodland, and obviously, no amount of color correction is going to fix the fact that those are clearly summer trees. In full leaf. So I think autumn onwards we can probably get away with it. But and obviously it's too hot at the moment. I mean, especially right now. I mean, we're expecting someone, poor old Jake, who you remember from Cold Shot, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to wear this bloody mask, and I wouldn't dare put it on right now. You'd just pass out in seconds, I think.
People don't think of this at all, do they? They don't think of the myriad of things that
logistics.
And again, it's the 2 seconds of a scene for someone walking from A to B. It's like you said, the logistics. You got to find the place, you got to find the right person, you got to tell them how to do it, you've got to write it, you've got to, there's all this stuff that's going on. You consider what's going on around them, and the sound and everything else, and all for the sake of, like you said, you could tell someone, I'm only going to need you for an hour, but you're not. You're going to need them for a lot longer than an hour.
I generally am like, can we get an evening or a day, and work from there, because maybe we'll be done in an hour. Very unlikely, but maybe. But I always think it's better to overestimate.
Don't hobble yourself, by saying the minimum amount of time, I think.
Yeah.
So, well, like I say, you're almost fully cast. I'm almost fully cast too. I've got
good news.
I've got 2 more roles to fill of the main kind of youngsters in the film, and of them, one of them is pretty much a cert already. They sent in like self-tape, and I'm like, this is probably the guy anyway. And then I've got like 3 grown-ups, adults, whatever. And I want to try and save those roles for not celebrities, but people who are a bit more well-known. There are some local people from like Welsh TV and stuff, maybe even a couple of like people who were like, for example, I'm not saying she's in it, but this is the type of celebrity I was thinking about. Someone like Sophie Aldred, who was Sylvester McCoy's assistant in Doctor Who. I know she's up for doing small things like that. There would be a role for her if she was interested. I haven't approached her, but again, it's
did you see that years ago? Someone did an interview with John Carpenter. It was a couple of years back. I don't know if you ever heard this, but they said, hey, how come you don't do scores anymore? And he was like, nobody's asked me. He said, I would literally have scored a movie for free if someone had just asked, but no one ever did. And I was like, oh my God. Like,
imagine that.
Imagine if you just, as an indie filmmaker, just went, hey, John, would you mind? And he was just like, yeah, sure, no worries.
Yeah.
Like, unbelievable.
I remember,
but that's really cool. Yeah, if she's up for smaller roles, that's
Yeah, I mean, it's people like that. Like I say, there are some people on the convention circuit, like people who used to be in Doctor Who back in the day, and other things like that, who was kind of just doing the convention circuit to earn a couple of quid on the side, basically. But if you say to them, would you be up for doing a film if I pay your food and your travel and give you a couple of quid and stuff, would you be up for it? And they're more willing to do it for a bit of fun now, rather than speak to my agent. And when you get to speak to my agent people, then forget it.
I mean, it's priced out of your range anyway if they're saying speak to my agent. At that point,
you can't afford that. I mean, amongst the indie film lot, there's you, me, and there's a bunch of guys from Cardiff, and I know a couple of sort of small groups of people who are making, trying to make films and stuff, and we do kind of help each other and stuff.
I think it's a great community.
Yeah.
Certainly that I've been blessed. The people I've interacted with have been fantastic.
Yeah, and as you go up the ladder, there becomes this impenetrable bubble of we've made it now, therefore we're not helping people lower than us, and that's a shame because like I said, if you had John Carpenter saying, "Hey, do you know what? I'll score your film for you," the amount of kudos you get by saying to people, like the bragging rights, by saying, "Look, John Carpenter did the score for this," everyone on the internet will talk about it. Have you seen this film that John Carpenter scored?
Yeah.
And it
like, I mean, what an amazing help it would be if one of those actors, who they're not necessarily huge, but it just adds that credibility, and you're going to pay their way for a weekend as a free weekend in a hotel, and bit of food.
And again, like there was that story about Madonna was in an English pub with Guy Ritchie, and she was drinking a pint of bitter, and she was holding the glass in such a way that you could see the logo of this independent brewery, and their sales went through the roof once the video got out of Madonna drinking their beer. And it's like, that's all you need. It's like if a director said to me, let's take Edgar Wright or Kevin Smith or someone like that, said, "Hey man, best of luck with your thing. Look, he's on his podcast or whatever." Kevin Smith goes, "Hey, don't watch Bloody Students." You'd be like, "That's it."
You couldn't pay for that kind of exposure. It's just not,
exactly.
that would be huge.
And it would be nice if people higher up help the people lower down, because again, Quentin Tarantino started from working in a video store. So did Kevin Smith, and look at them now. So this, I guess, is going to be maybe we should do this like once every 6 months and just sort of see how
we should, because I'll do it for you and you do it for me, and we'll check in on each other, see how we're doing.
And again, it does keep you kind of keep you sharp and keep you motivated. And again, it's like it might be an interesting little experiment to see where we are 6 months from now.
Especially because our films are at similar stages. It's going to be interesting to see how
pretty much
both
written,
progress.
Pretty much all cast, and sort of, I'm like,
I worry that in like 6 months to a year we might just have an episode where we're just bitching.
Yeah, it's like, well, that didn't work, did it? Or it's all right. It turned out
become like a self-help group.
Yeah, it's like trying to support it. Don't worry, the next one will be better. Right. Well, we just had the warning that 10 minutes. Indeed. It's surprising how quick these things go. I was thinking, 40 minutes again, like filming 40 minutes. That'd be fine for a video. And now we're
I do radio and podcasts. I talk forever, so there's no stop.
That's what I love about podcasts. It's unstructured, and you can just go off on tangents. It's great. But the caveat here is that if this doesn't work out, the recording thing didn't work, or it's just one screen.
Meet again in the week.
Whoops. But anyway, in the optimistic hope that it has worked out, it's been amazing to talk to you as always, Rich.
Thanks for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I do need to get to Bristol a bit more often.
Just for a drink or something.
I love Bristol, and one of our lead actresses, Hannah Clift, is a Bristolian, and
there's your perfect excuse.
Oh my God, she's a star. She can sing. She does stand-up comedy. She does Shakespeare. Amazing. She's comedy Shakespeare, and
she's in Bloody Students.
She's the bestie of the lead actress. So
excellent.
And she's got some of the funniest lines.
Awesome.
I really can't wait to work with her, because she's so talented. I just feel like I've got to really bring my A game now, because I've got some really good actors in there. I'm like, oh shit. They'll be looking at me like
that. I mean, again, that pushes you.
That's what I want. That's what I want, right?
Think about that. The John Carpenter thing. If John Carpenter turned around and went, "Yeah, I'm going to score your movie," then you're like, "Now it's got to be amazing, hasn't it? Now I have to make it brilliant."
Totally. Yeah. Right. Well, before we go, like I said, amazing talking to you. Where can people find out about you and the film?
DursProductions.com is probably the best place, or just look up Durs Productions on YouTube or on all of the podcast streaming sites. We're there. But thank you. We've got a casting call out at the moment for the remaining roles. So
okay,
if you're in the area and interested,
well, I'll put links in the description, as they say, and on screen as well.
I will send you the links,
and hopefully we'll get this out in time for Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, it's Terry on Tuesday, right? So it's got to be this Tuesday or the following.
You hope, even if it's like, 1 minute to midnight on Wednesday. It's like,
still counts.
Tuesday.
Still counts.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, I'm about to end this. So
well, thank you for having me.
And thanks for watching, everybody out there. And I will see you soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers.